Hello everyone, this is your junior philosophy and social science teacher. Today's video, we are going to continue our discussion on the social, economic, political, and cultural issues of the Philippine history. Now, we are still on our discussion about the Philippine Constitution, and this is already the third video that we are going to have. So, in this video, we are going to talk about the 1935 Constitution. This is the Commonwealth Constitution. Pero bago ang lahat, huwag kalimutang mag-like and subscribe at i-click mo na rin yung notification bell down there para ma-updated ka sa lahat ng videos at saka sa mga bagong videos na ating i-upload. So, let's start our discussion. Paano nga ba nabuo itong Commonwealth Constitution? So, let us now go back to the previous constitutions that we had. So, the first constitution that we had was the Biak na Bato Constitution. Ang pangalawa, itong Malolos Constitution of 1899. However, it was not again implemented because of the ongoing war. So, it is worth to mention that after the Treaty of Paris, so after the Philippines was sold by the Spaniards to the Americans, the Philippines was subject to the power of the United States of America. So, effectively, the Americans became our new colonizers. So from 1898 to 1901, the Philippines was placed under a military government by the Americans until such time that there was a civil government now created by the Americans. So let's try to look at these happenings in history. The United States Congress passed two acts. These acts were considered as having the qualities of constitutionality. So the first one was the Organic Act of 1902. So this was the first organic law of the Philippine Islands that provided for the creation of a popularly elected Philippine Assembly. So there was a creation of the Philippine Assembly. Now, the acts specified that the legislative power would be vested in a bicameral legislature composed of the Philippine Commission as the upper house and the Philippine Assembly as the lower house. Another key provision of this particular act was actually the inclusion of the Bill of Rights of the Filipinos and the appointment of two non-voting Filipino resident commissioners of the Philippines as representatives to the United States of America. The second act that was passed by United States Congress was the Jones Law, or this was known as the Philippine Autonomy Act of 1916. This particular act of 1916 modified the legislature, it modified the structure of the Philippine government through the removal of the Philippine Commission. So there was a Philippine Commission, diba, sa 1902, but it was removed and it was replaced with a Senate. So meron ng Senado that served as the upper house and its members elected by the Filipino voters, the first truly elected national legislator. So there was now an election that happened. Ayan. It was also in this act that there was a declaration of the purpose of the United States to end their sovereignty, to end their colonialism over the Philippines. And this act also recognized the Philippine independence as soon as a stable government would be created in our Philippine Islands. So kung titingnan natin, it seems really that the Americans were trying to help us to create a stable government. Kasi nga wala tayong stable government prior to this particular provisions. So there was a Biak na Bato pero revolutionary yon. There was this Malolos Republic pero hindi nga yon na-recognize ng other states, so it was abolished and it was not really implemented in reality. So here comes this desire of the Americans to help the Filipinos in giving us a stable government. Now, in 1932, with the efforts of the Filipino Independence Mission led by Sergio Osmeña and together with Manuel Rojas, the United States Congress passed the Hair Horse Cutting Act. So, Hair Horse Cutting Act with the promise of granting the Philippines a total independence from the hands of the Americans. So this bill was opposed by the Senate President Manuel Quezon at that time, and consequently rejected by the Philippine Senate. It was rejected by the Philippine Senate. However, by 1934, the Tydings-McDuffie Act, also known as the Philippine Independence Act, was passed by the United States Congress. And this provided authority and defined mechanisms for the establishment of a formal constitution by a constitutional convention. So there was now a convention to create a formal constitution. So the members of the convention were elected and held their first meeting on July 30, 1934, with Claro M. Recto unanimously was elected as the president. To understand better the context and the perspective of this particular constitution, let's try to look at the preamble of the 1935 Constitution. This was the constitution approved by the government of the United States, and of course this constitution ensures the promise of the America to grant total independence to the Filipinos. Preamble of the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. The Filipino people, imploring the aid of divine providence in order to establish a government that shall embody their ideals, conserve and develop the patrimony of the nation, promote the general welfare, and secure themselves and their posterity the blessings of independence under a regime of justice, liberty, and democracy, do ordain and promulgate this Constitution. By analyzing the preamble, it's mentioned here already the idea of liberty. So the freedom is here. Now the ideals of patrimony, the conserving and developing our nation and Jannah, and most importantly, the democracy. So this was the beginning of the creation of a democratic government in the Philippines, the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. So this particular constitution created the Commonwealth of the Philippines, and we have Manuel Quezon as our president during that time. So this was the administrative body that governed the Philippines from 1935 up to the year 1946. So it was a transitional form of government. Why transitional? Because it actually prepared the country towards our full achievement of total independence from the American government or American colonizers. The Constitution was approved by the Constitutional Convention on February 8, 1935, and it was ratified by the U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt on March 25, 1935 particularly. So after that, elections were held in September, somewhere in September 1935, and Manuel Luis Quezon was elected as the president of that 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. Ngunit, ano ang nangyari? The 1935 Constitution supposedly was a preparation for the Philippines to have our stable government. However, it was interrupted by the World War II when the Japanese occupied the Philippines. So when the Japanese occupied the Philippines in the year 1941, so the Commonwealth 1935 Constitution or the Commonwealth government was interrupted, and Manuel Luis Quezon fled to the States and together with Sergio Osmeña. And now there was a puppet government created in the Philippines. So a puppet government led, of course, by the empires of Japan, the government of Japan, until such time that we had our liberation. We had our liberation. To cut the story short, we got the World War II ended in the year 1945, and so the Philippines was declared as an independent republic, particularly on July 4, 1946. And from that time, from 1946, we were totally free from the hands of any colonizer. So we created our independent republic. We created our sovereign republic of the Philippines, which were free from any controls of any European and any colonizers from the other countries. And that ends our discussion about the Commonwealth or 1935 Constitution. So to sum up, again, the 1935 Constitution became our the beginning. It was the beginning of the creation of the Philippine democracy. No, doon nagsimula that we started to create a stable government recognized by the United States of America. And of course, after the World War II in 1945, then we continue to follow that particular constitution until such time that it was revised in the year 1973. There was a constitutional authoritarianism that was promulgated by Ferdinand Edrelin Marcos. So we will continue our discussion on that particular subject matter in the next video that we are going to have. Again, this is Sir Jun, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe at i-ring mo rin yung bell down there para ma-updated ka sa mga bagong videos na ating i-upload. So see you sa next video natin.